side. And for people who want to pay the respect, if I can get the mayor.
We sit anywhere or?
Yeah, anywhere.
ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون فرحين بما آتاهم الله من فضله ويستبشرون بالذين لم يلحقوا بهم من خلفهم ألا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون.
Except these days, when we received the meat of Qurbani.
Using the alternative gates, which is not controlled by the gatekeepers. I will introduce Ahmed Najat from Jazeera to start it with Bismillah. Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming in such a short notice, and thanks for Palestine House for organizing such an important event here to remember all of these journalists that have been killed in Gaza and in the West Bank as well. For me, the news of the assassination of Anas al-Sharif was such a shock. And although I knew he was being threatened, Israel threatened him multiple times, he himself appealed to the world to protect him and protect his colleagues, but sadly that fell on deaf ears. News came about. For me, Anas al-Sharif was like a lifeline, especially when the north of Gaza was cut off, was back out, and Anas al-Sharif was the only journalist reporting from the north of Gaza, where my family was. I couldn't speak to my family, I couldn't reach out to them, but he was reporting on the war crimes were committed in the north of Gaza. Although the death of Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues were devastating for me and for many of us, somehow it didn't come as a surprise. Because it's not an isolated event. It is an event that's systematic, that Israel is following just to kill the truth. Because what threatens Israel is the truth. It's true. Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues were a threat to Israel because they were carrying the truth. And for Israel is really that they are not only wanting to erase the Palestinians, they also want to erase any record of the Palestinians. And that's the reason they focus on killing journalists. They have killed 214 journalists. Also, they have killed poets, writers, teachers, lecturers. Bearing in mind also, they have destroyed all universities in Gaza, 13 universities. The war in the Palestinians is not just a war for killing the Palestinians, it's also a war in the identity, the heritage, the culture of the Palestinians. See how many musicians, folklores, and teachers and actors and what have you they have killed. In fact, Israel has the database of everyone, and they have, in the first 6 months, focused very much on those people, on the poets, lecturers, and musicians, and journalists, and what have you. Right now, journalists are in Gaza deactivating their social media accounts because they feel the threat. I know at least 6 journalists in Gaza have deactivated all of their social media accounts because they fear for their life. And it is frustrating to see how the Western media covering all of this news. I have been in a couple of interviews with Western media, and the focus was purely on Al-Assad being a member of Hamas. Bizarre allegation against our journalists. And it was just sickening to my boss to just go into these interviews and instead of talking about the work that these journalists have been doing, the work, they are heroes, they are our heroes. Now I found myself defending these journalists by the fact to tell that they were not Hamas or they were not associated with any military group. It is sickening. It's not only the Western media, also the Western leaders as well. You know, today Germany and the UK have met to impose sanctions on Iran, to reimpose the sanctions on Iran, and yet debating whether it's a genocide or not in Gaza. They haven't imposed any kind of sanction. They have not even cut ties with Israel or stopped selling arms to Israel. They are still business as usual with Israel, only because they believe Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. They want to impose sanctions on it, but with all the overwhelming evidence against Israel, there was no decision being made to impose any sanctions on Israel. Today we are here gathering to remember all these journalists.
I'm so sorry.
And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for coming to remember these journalists. And please, keep doing what you're doing. Our voice is being heard, no matter how much they try to ignore it. We will amplify the voices of Gaza, the voices of the people of Gaza, and the voices of the journalists of Gaza. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Karishma Patel. I left the BBC over in We have called you here today because Israel is murdering Palestinian journalists in Gaza. We have called you here because the journalists in Gaza have been our steadfast eyes and ears for nearly 2 years, showing us the reality of Israel's actions, and that is why Israel is targeting them. Israel wants to gouge out the eyes of the world to complete its genocide in the darkness. But we will not look away. We will not detach, we will not disengage, we will shed light on the truth. Every journalist here today knows that Palestinian journalists are our colleagues, and every journalist around the world should feel how terrifying and how abhorrent it is that the blue breastplate, the emblem of protection, is now a target. Israel is using the blue breastplate as a target. For nearly 2 years, we watched Western media devalue the contribution of Palestinian journalists, of our brothers and sisters working in Gaza, bravely going about their jobs. Western media has framed them as quote-unquote local people. Oh. Better? Is that much better? It's framing them as local people unworthy of journalistic protections, it has failed to do the basic work of challenging Israel's claims that they are legitimate targets, that they are members of Hamas. This was one of many reasons I had to leave the BBC. After fighting executives, fighting editors, what I saw at the BBC was not journalism. We're fighting Israel and we are fighting a Western media landscape that refuses to see Palestinian journalists for who they really are, the best of our profession. They are the gold standard of journalism. They are the only reason we know the reality of the grave crimes Israel is committing every single day, day in and day out, against the Palestinian people. And even now, so many journalists have been targeted. Journalists in Gaza are continuing to do their jobs, are continuing to report, continuing to raise the alarm, refusing to stop, refusing to consign their people to be murdered in silence, to be murdered in the dark. I am calling out to every journalist who feels something, anything, to act. I need you to band with your like-minded colleagues, organize action, shout from the top of your lungs. And if you need help, if you need any direction, I want you to come to me and not to sit and do nothing. If you feel any hesitation whatsoever in standing up for what's right, I want you to think of Anas al-Sharif, who was born the same year as me, was not yet even 30, a journalist who refused to stop reporting, who was offered the opportunity to leave Gaza and said no, a journalist who put his life on the line in order to do what we all believe in or are meant to believe in order to give us truth, to give us accountability. So I urge you to be lit with the fire of his bravery. I urge you to move forward with his conviction, his steadfastness. And I need you to be reminded that every journalist Israel has killed has understood the true value of journalism in a way that so many journalists in the comfort of their Western newsrooms couldn't even begin to understand. How many blue breastplates must we see covered in the blood of young journalists? How many times will we hear that Israel has killed a journalist alongside their entire family? Every time Israel murders a journalist, it's another wound in the heart of the journalistic profession. The very idea that society should protect those who are gathering evidence, who are bringing us the truth, and being eroded before our eyes. Our access to reality itself is therefore being eroded before our eyes. That's what is at stake. That affects everybody. The journalists in Gaza are us, and we are them. They are our eyes, they are our ears, and ultimately they are the soul of our profession. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Christy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to this video tonight. My name is Matthew Muhammad Abdul Latif Robinson. I'm a filmmaker and accredited member of the press. I spoke briefly last night about my union, Bectu. This is who I've got my press card through. Now, for 22 months, Bectu have been silent on Gaza. Now, there's a bit of hypocrisy going on here, and I don't like to call people out personally, but Philippa Charles, the head of Bectu, let me just check my phone. She tweeted in, I think it's February 2022, in support of Gaza, in support of Ukraine, in support of Ukrainian journalists and media workers. She's not tweeted since, she's not tweeted about Gaza. So I've got a question for her. Why are you silent on Gaza, Philippa? Now, the union Bectu itself, back at the start of July, so about 6 weeks ago, they had a national assembly, a national conference in York. Now, in York, there were 100 people voting. A motion was tabled for Bectu to make send an official letter to Zipi Hatavli, the Israeli ambassador, and to David Lammy, the foreign minister. Now, it was voted on. 22 people voted against, 88 people voted for. So this motion was passed. at the national conference. This letter has still not been written or delivered. So my question to Bektu is, why is this letter? Why has it not been written or delivered when your members have voted for it at the National Assembly? Now this brings me on to the BBC. Most of the people in that building in the BBC are Bektu members. Now we know the foul, dehumanising and frankly lying headlines that the BBC put out about Anas al-Sharif and his crew saying that they were working with Hamas. We know this is a lie, but we also know that the head of the Middle East desk at the BBC is someone called Rafi Berg. And Rafi Berg has a picture of Benjamin Netanyahu on the wall in his office. Rafi Berg has links to Mossad. And he also used to have links to the CIA when he worked in America. So, I would like to say to Bektu members, how can you work in an environment where your journalistic integrity and the national broadcaster's integrity is put into question because someone who has a conflict of interest, a genocidal conflict of interest. So I personally, I don't know if that's in my power, but as a Bektu member, as a member of the writer, producer, directors branch here in London, I would like to call for Bektu members to A, ask where this letter is, why hasn't it been sent, and when will it be sent, and B, strike. Thank you.
Thank you.